A game with a historical background will generally catch my interest, depending on the time period of course. So when I first heard about Pentiment and how it was a murder mystery game set in the 16th century in Bavaria, I was already looking forward to it. Combined with knowing that Obsidian Entertainment were developing the game and I liked the stories in their games, I was sure Pentiment would be in good hands. I will try and keep this game spoiler free, though you may see later sections of the game out of context. Pentiment begins in the year 1518. Martin Luther, a theologian, had just put out his 95 Thesis criticising the dominant Catholic Church by posting them on the door of a church. The Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo was still very new, only being shown to the public for the first time a few years earlier, and we were well into the printing revolution, which was being favoured over the traditional scriptoriums found in monasteries, where manuscripts were once written, copied and illustrated by hand. The Renaissance was in full swing, and there were big changes on the horizon, especially given the actions of that Martin Luther guy who would ultimately shake up religion and bring about the Reformation. Among all this, you play the role of Andreas Mahler, an apprentice illuminator, or illustrator, working at Kersau Abbey outside the Bavarian town of Tassing. One day, as he is going to work, Andreas becomes acquainted with Baron Lorenz Rothvogel, a noble benefactor of the abbey wanting to check in and see how a manuscript he commissioned was going. The Baron seems to be most interested in Martin Luther's writings, which also puts him at odds with Abbot Gernot. After checking in on the manuscript, worked on by Brother Piero, an older monk at the abbey and a mentor of sorts to Andreas, the Baron is unimpressed at the speed of progress and requests for Andreas to finish the job. The following day, the Baron is found murdered in the abbey's chapter house, with Brother Piero being the first to find the body and holding the knife stuck into the Baron's side. With the abbey's reputation at stake, Abbot Gernot accuses Brother Piero of the murder and has him detained until the Archdeacon to the Prince Bishop arrives to conduct an inquiry. Andreas, not believing Brother Piero to be capable of murder, takes it upon himself to investigate it and gather evidence before the Archdeacon arrives. This event is just the first of several spanning the course of 25 years, where Andreas's actions will have consequences on the abbey, as well as the town of Tassing and the inhabitants in both places. But is the game any good? Find out in The Good. The key element to this game is its storytelling, and it really shines in Pentiment. Whether Andreas is investigating or just trying to know his neighbours better, you'll get to learn about the people in town and at the abbey, what they do and who they like and don't like. Some of these characters may be likeable, others may be a victim of circumstances, and some of the things that you can learn about these characters can be found by doing activities or sharing a meal with them. If they're characters that are capable of murder, I feel it can really play on the conscience and make you hesitate to accuse a person that you had just sat down to have dinner with of a crime, especially if you learn why a character acts the way they do. It also doesn't help that the lines of inquiries that you follow to try and find who the culprit is will paint a very convincing argument that several people in the area had the means as well as the motive to do it. Given that Andreas has limited time to investigate and must present his findings, it also presents a feeling of urgency, and you wish you had more time to chase up a lead or help someone. Andreas's actions will ultimately affect how the townspeople and the people at the abbey will view him throughout the game, and I've always liked the idea of seeing characters you're familiar with getting older, living their lives, and how Andreas's actions have shaped their views and opinions, be it for the better or for the worse. Some of the answers that Andreas gives may help or hinder his progress on following a lead or getting information out of people, as they'll remember certain answers and actions, and this can work for or against Andreas. Certain choices at the start of each act will also shape Andreas's background, as well as opening new dialogue options or giving him insight into things he might stumble across in his journey. Perhaps he might be good with numbers or good with nature. Maybe Andreas might know how to speak and read multiple languages. All the choices and possibilities available to you throughout the game will make replaying it and seeing where you end up all that more exciting. I'm also a fan of the game's visual presentation, accessibility options and music. The visuals of the game are inspired by illustrations, manuscripts, printed materials and woodcuts from the time period right down to the fonts used when characters are talking. If you have issues reading the font, no problem. The game has a simplified font feature which will make it easier to read, as well as narrator options which will read out the text for you. Not familiar with the terms and names used throughout the game? You can press a button to get some brief details or a small illustration if it's referring to one of the characters that you can meet. There's some pretty interesting historical details put into the game, like an anchorite, religious recluses who generally confine themselves away from people to serve God, as well as pagan customs and the ancient goddess Perchta. In terms of music, the music was handled by Alchemy Early Music Ensemble, who had kept the music and sound cues historical, or at least historically inspired. Combined with the game's art style, this really complements and reinforces the period piece and certainly adds a lot of charm to the game. However, the game's not perfect, so let's look at what didn't work so well in the bad. My only gripe with this game, and even I think I'm stretching here, is just the pacing for the game's third act. I won't spoil too much here or show too much of it, but after having to deal with the urgency and time constraints of the previous two acts, I feel that the third act, while tying up the story brilliantly, takes its time in getting there. The third act involves creating a mural about the town, and while there is a time limit to get it done by, I never felt rushed and there was plenty of time for me to follow all the leads available to me to learn more about the town and the effects that Andreas' actions have had on the townsfolk. It just felt a little jarring and slightly less exciting to me, but the last section of the game certainly made up for it. Of course, you'll have to see for yourself what that is. Nonetheless, that's all I have to complain about, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. Pentiment is a game I really enjoyed, as someone who likes solving mysteries as well as history. The storytelling and choices available to you in the game encourages replayability, and even some of the activities people did back in the 16th century has been portrayed well as mini-games that you can get involved with. The game's visual presentation, music and accessibility options does make the game more appealing, and you don't have to be a history buff or an aficionado to enjoy it, since a lot of historical terms and names you can reference in-game for more information. The only issue I had was the pacing of the last act, but that doesn't detract much from the overall experience as the story gets wrapped up well. If you enjoy the type of storytelling that Obsidian Entertainment puts out, or if you like games with a historical background, though this game does have fictional elements, or mystery games where you need to find clues to catch a culprit, then Pentiment is definitely worth having a look at. It's a nice change of pace and I really had fun with it. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Pentiment this 16th century inspired frog out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.